Hello, everybody. Welcome back. What you see here is my next project. Now, what I plan on doing with this old Ridemower right here is turn it into a miniature forklift. You might be asking yourself, why are you going to turn that into a miniature forklift? It's mainly for the ease of moving stuff around, primarily a lot of my Halloween stuff. I have a lot of props like these ones right here. They're big, they're bulky, kind of heavy, just awkward to move around. And a lot of times when I'm building them or moving around the shop, they kind of get a little hard to move around. And I do have a hand truck over there, but sometimes that's really not a good thing to use to move certain props, especially like one like this one right here, where it has a lot of styrofoam and stuff like that on it, to where it could potentially damage the styrofoam or damage my paint finish. So I decided I want to find another way of transport moving these things around. So I thought I'd build myself a small forklift. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking this tractor right here, stripping it down to the bare frame, just the motor, rear axle, all that kind of stuff, kind of flipping it around. So the back will be considered the new front. That's where the forks will be. The forks will be able to be lifted up about 4 feet in the air. So if I really need to lift something up, or say I need to put something on or off my table, I can do that. Then obviously I got to find a way to reconnect the steering system, the electronics, as far as the ignition switch, the choke, all that kind of stuff, and then put the seat back here, and then probably do some kind of counterweight. Now I know this isn't really necessarily a Halloween prop per se, but it is going to be something I'm going to be using for moving around my Halloween props, and you'll probably see it in upcoming videos. As let's say, like I'm doing my display and I'm setting stuff up, and you're probably going to see it, and things like, what is that thing that he's using? So I thought this would be a really cool thing to put on this channel, so you guys can not only see what I built, how I built it, and essentially its intended use. So I hope y'all enjoy this video, and let's get started. All right, so just a quick update. Those big heavy pieces of steel you saw me cutting were essentially going to be the new frame rails, essentially, for the back of the tractor here, because this is what's going to bear all the weight. I put the forks and all this stuff on there, and I don't want to put all that weight on these flimsy little frame rails here. So you see, I got 3 bolts going down each side, and some of the original locations where some of the implements and stuff like that were originally bolted to, that obviously aren't going to be used no more. You see, I built a new heavy-duty flat platforms for the axle to bolt to, with some gussets on here. I also built a underside structure to tie the top and bottom of the axle together, just to make sure, like maybe in this area, I don't get any excess stresses that I don't want it to have. So I just did that right there for a little extra reinforcement. The rag is because why I already had it out. I figured I'd drain all the fluid out of it, but I don't have any new fluid to put in it, so I'm just going to leave the plug out for now. So I just stuck the rag in there, just to make sure nothing goes inside there. Pretty much one of the next step is going to be to try, hopefully these wheels come off. I haven't even attempted to pull these off yet, so hopefully they come off so I can cut these back to the distance they need to be. I got to remake a new bracket for the front half of the transmission here. Now what I did is I actually reversed the transmission 180 degrees. I did that because I wanted all my forward gears to go, when I'm going forward with the tractor now, and not always riding in reverse, essentially. So the original bracket that would have been over here is now is going to be over here. So, but it's not a big deal. I'll just tie it into all this when I'm done. I'll make it to where I can bolt it in so it can be easily removed. And then I'll also be kind of tinker with the steering and the pedals. I already kind of looked at the steering. The way that thing is set up, I should be able to put that on here, flip it 180 degrees so the steering wheel can go down at the angle that it needs to go to, and just extend the rods back to the wheels. So I should be able to do that without a problem, and just figure out exactly where those are going to be the best fit for along here, based on where I'm going to put my seat. I want to get it to where the thing could potentially move under its own power before I start really getting too far into this right here, just to make sure everything's going to work. As far as the clutch, well, not really the clutch, but the brake, the linkages, my idler pulleys, and all that stuff that I got to reconfigure and all that kind of stuff. And I want to make sure that this thing works and moves and does what it needs to do before I really fully finish this. But I needed to get this so this way I can do stuff like all that linkages and everything like that. So, but just a quick update. Next step is to continue working on it. All right, so I got another quick update. I got that one tensioner pulley in place. I had to put it right here because since I flipped the transmission 180 degrees, you see where the belt would end up hitting this right here. So you see where I had to put that pulley there. So this way it walks the belt away from there. I got plenty of clearance, but I might still put like a little protective, piece right here, maybe like a piece of this metal in a way. So this way the belt vibrates, whatever, it'll be touching this and never touching that right there. And I'll just use this like a sacrificial piece. So if it starts to wear down, I can always change it out. I wasn't able to get the steering as far as this direction as I want to because of the way the pedals are oriented with that bracket right there. So what I had to do to make it so the pedals don't hit the tires, as you can see, I went ahead and I cut everything off of them as far as the little washer that stopped it in its location, plus the other pieces. Same with this side. So now I'm going to slide those in, get them right where I need them to be so they'll clear the tires, re-weld the washer where I need it to stay. And then after that, then I'll figure out exactly where these are going to have to go back on here for the linkages. And hopefully I'll be able to make this work like I want to. And then the steering, I'm probably going to have to put one of those swivel joints on there. So this way I can take the rod and kind of go, kind of bend it like this a little bit and come up a little bit more, because right now it's going so far that I'm almost going to be sitting on top of the motor. And I kind of want to sit a little bit, not necessarily fully in front of it, but not necessarily directly on top of it. So I'm going to keep on trucking away at it. All right, so another quick update. I'm going to show you some, I guess you can say, some serious re-engineering that I just had to do to try to get all this to work like I want to. Let me go ahead and put my phone on the stand. I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so let me kind of show what I got going on here. This was definitely a little bit of a chore, I guess you can say, to try to get this to all work like it's supposed to. Now, this is one of those hydrostatic style transmissions, so it technically doesn't actually have a clutch. Yeah, all it really does is it has a brake pedal, and that brake pedal also loosens the idler pulley, the tensioner pulley, essentially. But my problem that I ran into is since I flipped the transmission around like I was showing earlier, and I had to put the pulleys in this location to keep it away from there, for it to take the tension off the belt, this has to go this way. So obviously, if I'm pushing on the pedal this way and I have this linkage going this way, it's going to, as I push on the pedal, all it wants to do is put more tension on it. So I had to find a way to essentially reverse this by going this way, even though the pedal is going this way. So you can see I kind of got like this extra kind of linkage deal going on here. So I got the pedal here that goes to this linkage right here. This will go right over to this one right here. So as this goes forward, this will push this way, causing the bottom to teeter that way. Pulling on this rod right here, which will loosen my pulley right here. So you see where when I push it down, see how all this is moving right here? It's taking my tension off, and then I have my tension. And then the other thing I had to do is I had to incorporate the brake into this somehow. And the brake lever only moves very little compared to how much the rest of this moves. So I didn't want to make it to where I had a hard linkage to where I had to worry about possibly breaking the housing of this or something of that nature. So I don't know if you could see it really good, but right here I have this extra coil spring that I end up attaching to this rod right here. And then I have it hooked to a hard linkage right here. So I have a spring technically in the center. So what that does is no matter how far I push this down, once this lever for the brake itself bottoms out, it won't go any further, and I'm not going to do any damage because all the spring's going to do is just stretch, and that's all it's going to do. And that's essentially what I had to do to essentially make that portion work. I still got to do a little refining. I actually got to shorten this arm just a little bit more. I want to get this pedal back just a pinch more. And then I'm going to sand and smooth everything all out really good. And I got to get all my cotter keys in. The other thing I had to do was for the hydrostatic side. That was actually the easiest one because all I had to do was after I got the pedals in place, all I had to do is take the original linkage, just shorten it. So to go from here to here. So when you got to go forward, you see it'll go forward, it pushes on the linkage, and you go backwards, it'll pull on the linkage. So this one was easy. And then the other thing you saw where I showed that I was going to reduce the width of the pedals, and I had to do that because I was trying to push this as far this way as I can, but obviously this now has to go kind of between the tires and the frame. And I actually had this a little bit further forward than that, but the problem was this the link right here for the pedals was right directly below the pulley, and I don't want the pulley rubbing on that, possibly causing damage and all that stuff. So I had to back it back up just a little bit. But essentially, that's what I had to do to try to overcome the geometry, I guess you can say, of the idler pulley, the tensioner from the brake pedal, and all that kind of stuff. So the next step is I'm going to go ahead and work on the steering. Once I get the steering all put together, I'm going to get the motor fired up. So I could test the pedals, test the brakes, see how everything's working. As long as everything is doing what it's supposed to do, then I can go ahead and move on to the actual fabrication of the forks, putting a seat on here, building some kind of platform for this and all that. So let's keep trucking away at it. All right, so I'm at this point right now. Sorry I'm not showing every single little step that I've been doing, especially with the steering. It's been a lot of trial and error, back and forth, putting stuff on, cutting it off, all that kind of stuff, trying to get the right arrangement. So I figured just for time's sake, it'd be easier for me just to go ahead and kind of get it done and then just give a quick explanation of what I did, essentially. So what I have here is I have this little nose cone piece that I made. I have it slanted like that, so this way as I'm looking straight down, I can look straight to my forks without any obstructions. For the steering wheel, you see I got this larger pipe right here that the steering shaft fit inside real nicely. I got it to where it's bolted here, and then the shaft comes down, comes out, goes to one of those gears, and then a bearing right here. This bearing right here is what keeps the bottom from moving back and forth or like this as I'm turning the gear itself. I'm probably going to put a couple extra gussets on here to just reinforce that. And then that chain comes down to the actual steering mechanism itself, where you see you got the gear down there, and then you got this plate here, which keeps that stable. Now I got the gear here, and then I got the bearing here. This bearing is the same thing, just keeps this from moving this way or this way as I'm turning the gears. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do something maybe on the top here, maybe just take a washer, drill this, tap it, so I can put something on there so this way. I don't think this is going to move, but just in case it can't pop out of it, just in case, you just never know. So the next step is going to be I'm starting to look at my wiring. I would like to put everything up here, take a piece of plate, run it across here, put everything on here, the key and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to have to extend some wires to come back to here. What I like to do underneath the seat here is I like to be able to put the gas tank and the battery and the starter solenoid down here. So I'm going to have to do some extending of the wires. And what I want to do is I want to be able to run the wires right down here, all the way down, and then run them inside like a larger piece of pipe or something down inside here, just so they're well out of the way of all the mechanisms and all that. The seat, I put the seat back as far as I could get it without being directly on top of the motor because I really didn't want to be on the motor. That's why I had to do that whole steering arrangement. So you see where I have it where it's set. Now this chair is adjustable. You see these little notches right here? Has a little paddle right here. You can actually adjust the seat. So I can get the seat to where I'm not directly on the motor, but I'm as far back as I want to be. So I think that'll work just fine. So the next step is going to be to get the wiring done, figure out what I want to do for a gas tank, get the battery tray mounted in there somehow. Then I can give it a quick test run, see how everything's going to work, how it's going to steer. And then at that point, I will finally be ready to start the forks themselves. So let's keep trucking away at it. All right, so this morning I'm getting ready to get started on some of the finalization of the wiring so I can get this thing to fire up. Sorry about all the extra background noise. It's a nice rainy day here and I got a nice metal roof, so I'm sure you're hearing that in the background. But I ended up going and picking up a different gas can because I grossly underestimated the height of the battery. By the time I got the battery low enough to where I ain't got to worry about the metal that's on the bottom of the seat, touching the two terminals and causing it to arc. I really couldn't get anything in there other than maybe like one of those little small 1 gallon gas cans, and I just don't really feel that's going to be enough. So I moved the battery to the front and found a can that's going to fit in the back. I just got to make some brackets to hold it. But for now, I got to work on mounting the brake switch. This is the switch that connects to the brake pedal. That makes it where you have to apply the brake pedal in order to start it. I'm going to be mounting it somewhere in this area so that when I apply the brake pedal, it'll push on that switch right there. I'll be putting a little flat plate on there so I get a better surface contact. But what I want to do first is I want to put my fenders on here. Now, these are just a couple extra fenders that I saved from an old project a long time ago, an old Ride-A-Mower that I used for parts. And I just held on to the fenders because they're in great shape. I'm going to put those on the front. So I want to get those on first so I know exactly how far that pedal can be pushed in. So I know exactly where to put the switch at. So that's what I'm going to be working on right now. Once that switch is mounted, I'll go ahead and start putting on all the switches, running all the wires. I got to extend a few wires. I got my dash put up in here where I'll be able to put my ignition switch, my light switch, the PTO switch. So if I ever convert this to full hydraulics down the road, I have the PTO pulley I can use, and then the hour meter. So let's go ahead and get some of these fenders mounted and go from there. Okay, so I'm going to kind of consider the tractor portion to pretty much be done outside of just some, minor detail stuff. Mostly just like some body panels to cover all the stuff up. I got a couple more brackets to make for the fenders, attaching them to the running board so, they're a little more secure. That center section where the belts and all that stuff are at, just to kind of cover all that stuff so, nothing falls down inside there. Say like I have something on my lap or something like that. Overall, everything I think has actually come out pretty good. I'm going to talk about this gas tank area real fast. Let me pull this off. It doesn't stay on there anyways. Now, it is that gas tank I picked up. You see, I just made it to where it drops right down inside there. I built a tray for it to sit in out of some Lexan, bent it up on all four sides. So when the tank goes down inside there, it fits nice and firmly. I also put a metal strap over top of it just to kind of help keep it from bouncing or anything. I put it on a couple blocks, lift it up a little bit so this way the fill neck is up a little bit, so it makes it easy for me to fill, put gas and everything in it. Temporarily, I just have the hose stuck inside there for the moment. This motor has one of the fuel pump styles, so it'll pull the gas out of there. Definitely going to do something a little bit more permanent once I get a little further along, but for now, just to get it running, I just did that for the time being. You can see I put the choke and the throttle on the left side. I did that because I put the key over here to the right. So this way, as I'm turning the key, I can reach down, pull the choke up, adjust my throttle from over here. I also got that switch mounted down here. Got my little plate here. So this way, when I push the brake, you're activating the switch for starting it and all that. So like I said, other than just some minor detail stuff, I'm pretty much finally at that point where I can start doing what the project is, and that's building a forklift. This entire time has all literally just been literally taking a tractor and turning it around 180 degrees essentially. So a lot of fab time and a lot of work went into doing that right there. So, but let's go ahead and start it up real fast. I'm going to drive it around the shop real quick, show you guys what it's doing. It's still kind of rainy outside right now, so I'm not going to take it outside or anything. So let me just fire it up, show you real quick, and we'll go from there. Some of you are probably thinking, what in the world is he cutting that thing apart for already? Well, my whole original plan was for those frame rails where the fork is going to go to be as wide as I can get it. So this way it gives me a much more clear shot towards the forks. But because of the way that bolts to the axle, it would have either been right on the tire or so close to the tire that I was worried about it. So that's why I put the rails in here, and I just figured I would just do a stair step. So I moved these out 1.25 inches both sides, so that gives me a much more room to go in. And my seat channel is only like about 1.25 inches. So by the time it comes on top here with a little bit of space, it's going to pretty much stop kind of in this area anyways. So you see I'm going to have all this area right here that's going to have a nice clear shot looking down towards the forks. So I'm getting ready to start working on the uprights, those C-channel, and then start kind of getting that fab together and kind of go from there. Okay, so I got the main tower ready to kind of go on for extra measurements as far as my bracing where they got to be, because I'm going to be mounting my winch to it. Now you saw me boring those holes in the bottom for that pin. What that's for is my original plan was I was just going to make these. I was going to make the forks solid. They weren't going to move or anything like that. I mean, as far as the towers go itself or anything like that. But on a real forklift, you can actually tilt the boom forward and backwards a little bit. Now it's a little late in the game for me to be thinking about making a change like that, but I'm going to give it a shot and see if it's possible for me to do that. So I'm essentially building it in the way I can, and if it's just not going to work, I can always still weld it solid and just leave the pin in place. So what I'm doing is I have this kind of set just like this with these 2x4s underneath. That's going to give me my height that I need for that. So I'm going to set it on top there, figure out exactly where it needs to be, in or out, mark the holes on the bottom for that pin to go through. And I'm going to put that on there, and then I'm going to start figuring out where the next level of brackets need to be as far as where the winch is going to go. And if I do that tilt thing, where I want to put it and what I want to use to create that effect. So let's keep working on it. All right, so the main tower is in position. The next step is, like I said, I'm going to be using that winch. So I got to find where I'm going to mount it. I'm probably going to mount it somewhere here where it clears this body panel when I put this body panel on here. So it'll be right there, and it'll go up to a pulley that's going to be up there. And if I decide to do that, where this is going to pitch back and forth, I might have to find some way of doing something that maybe I can control from back here that's maybe threaded and come to maybe somewhere in this area. Like I said, I'm still trying to decide if I can do that, seeing how I kind of thought about that really late in the game. But once I get all that stuff figured out, then I will start making my slide piece that's going to go inside there. But this is where I'm at the moment. All right, so I've been kind of doing a little bit of experimenting with that whole tilting thing that I talked about I wanted to do. And I kind of been playing around with doing something like this, almost like I'm building my own homemade electric actuator, essentially. So I got like this windshield wiper motor down here. Got this little bicycle chain kind of going around to this piece of all thread. I have this right here. So as this spins the all thread, this will allow this to move back and forth, so it can pull forward or backwards. I have this piece right here that I built that's going to end up going on here, and to where it can actually pivot a little bit. So as it moves, it can have a little bit of flex to it. I've just been kind of experimenting with it. The reason I'm doing it this way is because I kind of went online and kind of looked up electric actuators, and for like a really good heavy duty one, they're upwards of almost $200 for like one that I'm sure that's going to be strong enough to be able to support the load of this thing. I'm not worried about it pushing it, because I found a lot that say they'll do like 660 pounds, lifting capacity, but that's, pushing this way. But if I have the actuator out like this, and I have, say, 300 pounds of weight on here, and the force pulling on this, is it going to essentially destroy the housing? Is it going to cause the housing to separate? Because it's more or less designed for lifting capacity, not so much like a pulling capacity, I guess you can say. So all the ones I saw that were heavy duty were kind of expensive. So I can always upgrade this system if it works really well. But for now, I want to just kind of go a much cheaper alternative route, just to make sure that this entire thing that I'm working on is even going to actually work and function like I want to. So I'll be tinkering with that a little bit more. Right now, I want to kind of get this thing right here built. So I'm in the process of welding these 3 heavy duty pieces of plate together so I can create my width that I need. I didn't have a piece big enough, so I'm just essentially welding these together. So you see I got a nice good bevel grind on here. And I'm slowly going to fill both sides, this whole side, and flip it over and do the same thing. I got my pieces that are going to go in between the C channel right here with the holes cut in them. That's going to be for like my little slug pieces I've made here for my bearings to go over. So that's what's going to ride inside the C channel going up and down. The top one is going to be a full piece, so I can hook my cable to it. So this is what I'll be pulling from. So that's going to go all the way across the whole thing. And then after that, once I confirm that everything is going to work, everything's going to do like what I need it to, I'll get the actuator thing finalized up, and then I'll start working on building myself some forks. So let's continue tinkering with this. All right, so I pretty much got the uprights completed outside of the forks. I got my cable ran up to my pulley, back down to my winch here. I got my makeshift homemade electric actuator right here. All that, kind of arrangement, I guess you can say. The next step is I got to build new battery trays for here, because in the process of building this, when I originally built the tractor, I kind of got so caught up in kind of building this that I forgot about some of the aspects of when I build this part, like the winch and stuff like that. So the battery being down there is not really going to work no more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move them back here, and I actually have 2 batteries, so I'm going to put one on either side. So the next step, I got to pull the seat and everything back off, so I can pull the gas can out of there. Obviously I don't want to be welded next to the gas tank. And then once I get those batteries reconnected, I'll get everything rehooked back up so I can fire it up. And at that point, I'll be able to hook up the controller for the winch and everything, and I'll show you how all this is working. All right, I got a couple battery trays made up real quick. So what I'm going to do is these are going to be mounted in this area right here, one on this side, one on the other side. And then what I'll do is I'll just link them together, you know, positive to positive, negative to negative. So this way it still stays 12 volts. But it'll give me some better cranking amps for the starter motor and for running the winch anyways. So it probably ain't gonna hurt it. Plus it'll give me a little extra weight on the backside of the tractor. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these mounted, get the batteries in it, redo the wires because I got a few that I have to extend now from here to back here. Get all that stuff taken care of, and then we'll start to see this thing come to life in this front section. And then after that, it'll be building the forks themselves. All right, so I'm at this point now. I got both batteries mounted, all hooked up. I extended all the wires that needed to be extended. Now, like I said, I hooked it to where it's positive to positive, negative to ground. So I'm not jumping it up to 24 volts. I'm still keeping it 12 volts. It's just giving it a little bit more cranking amps. Kind of like running jumper cables from one car to another car. That's pretty much what I did. It's just giving it a little bit more oomph, you know, for the starter motor and to run the accessories right there. I pretty much got this ready to go to start building the forks. What I did for the wiring, since the control right here already has everything inside of it as far as relays and all that stuff to run the winch itself, I also made it where I could take it off. So say like I'm working, trying to get something on here, I can still operate it and kick whatever I want to kick onto there, you know what I'm saying? But what I wanted to do to try to save myself a bunch of extra wiring and, you know, all that, is I ran a toggle switch right here. And what it is, I took the positive wire that would originally went to the winch and ran it to this toggle switch right here, and then branched from the toggle switch to the windshield wiper motor and then to that. So when it's in the down position, it'll run my homemade actuator. When it's in the up position, it'll run the winch. So this way it saved me a whole bunch of time and a lot of extra wiring and all that. Now, like I said, for now, I'm going to use my little homemade linear actuator, just because right now I don't really know how well this thing's really going to perform. I don't know, like if I get, you know, say 300 pounds worth of weight on there, like say I'm, you know, trying to carry my tree prop out there, and it's once I get off of it, if it's too heavy and it wants to lift up, and I have to put a bunch of extra weight on the back, and I put a bunch of extra weight on the back, now it's maybe too much for the steering, and I have a problem with the steering and stuff like that. But if everything works and everything checks out and the thing actually performs really good, I'll most likely upgrade this to a much better actuator. But like I said, those things can get pretty pricey. And until I know for a fact it's really going to work, I really don't want to put that kind of investment into that portion itself. So, but it's actually working really good. So I'm like I said, I'm just going to use it for now. I also put some safety stops on the boom itself on either side. So if for some reason, say that were to malfunction, break, whatever the case may be, it's gonna hit those stops and it's just gonna stop it at a certain point. It's not gonna go any further. Kind of like a little safety feature. So right now I have my jump box hooked to it on a low setting, just because without it running, it runs really slow. When it's running, everything runs a little bit quicker, but I don't want to fire it up, make it super noisy. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this on a stand and kind of show you how it works. All right, so like I said, the way it's set up, so right now if I put the toggle switch in the down position, you'll see you know, it moves the boom inward, and if I need to move it out, it'll move out. Now it is kind of slow. Hopefully, if I upgrade it, it'll be a faster actuator. But this isn't something that's going to be used all the time. It's only really going to be used if I feel I really need to have that little extra, you know, for lifting something up. And I want to make sure it doesn't fall off. And what it is, I put some grease fittings on there, so this way there's some grease all over the threads and all that stuff, just to make sure it works really nice. And then when I have something on the forks, I flip the toggle switch up. Now this is kind of noisy, so I apologize for this. But there we go. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for the forks, I'm going to be using this heavy wall square tubing right here and essentially generating my fork. Now, I already had this section made from a previous project and it ended up not using, so I just added a little extension to it to make it tall enough for the steel. You can see the marks right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be pie cutting that out. So this way I'll have about a foot solid, and then it'll go to a little bit of a point. What that'll do is if I do have to pitch it forward a little bit, that'll put it at the thinnest portion so I can kind of go up underneath something. I can pitch it back like this if I need to. And then I'll be adding some pieces on the top and the bottom there to make it to where I can slide it over that 3/8 steel and make it adjustable. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on these. All right, so this is what I ended up deciding to do with the fork. I decided to make a notch down the entire center of it, so this way I can reduce the amount that hangs off the front, but it still keeps a lot of the structural integrity to it. And you can see where I got that nice, taper to it. So I'm going to go ahead and slide it on and show you how it fits. Goes right on there, and that gives me a little bit of adjustment to where I can move them in and out if I need to. So now that those are both done, the next step is to start working on some body panels. We're going to get this thing finished right up. All right, here we go. It's all done, all working, operating, doing its thing. You saw us carrying that Halloween prop around just to see how well it would work. And then I decided to, kind of lift a few other things, the back half of that car, that metal rack and all that stuff, just to see some of its capabilities, how it's going to perform, how it's going to work and all that kind of stuff. But to my surprise, I'm really happy with actually how this thing actually performs. It works really well. It drives good. It steers good, all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty happy with it. One of the last minute changes I did was this counterweight on the back here. I did that because I figured I was probably going to need a little extra weight occasionally. And I have a setup where I put 2 of these blocks in here, but I'll probably only have 1 in there at a time. And then I built this cover to go around it. And that was kind of a last minute thing because when you look at all forklifts and stuff like that, they always have that big counterweight in the backside. That's what allows them to lift the weight up. And it also, I felt it was kind of a necessity to kind of tie everything together to make it look more complete or make it kind of look like what it was supposed to. So that was a last minute add-on that I did. The boom, I'm really happy with how the boom performed. Moves up and down nice and freely. The actuator thing does move, make it move, and works really good. It's definitely on the slow side, so I can always upgrade that down the road. I kind of thought I could also upgrade this to hydraulics, but I know hydraulics is going to be much stronger than the rig's going to be, and I'm probably going to break it. So it'd be best just to not do that. But I'll probably upgrade that actuator down the road. But for now, I'm not going to do anything with it just because kind of one of those things, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So it's working, so I'm just going to leave it alone. As far as the paint job, I decided to kind of go with that old, tractor. It's been sitting out in the middle of a field for 15 years. Drug it into the shop to rescue it, see if I can get it running again, kind of thing. So I kind of decided to kind of go that route. So you see, I definitely got the kind of the rusty look to it, the patina, the paint semi wore off kind of thing. Rusted up the boom pretty good with some brown paints and all that kind of stuff. I did that because I kind of didn't want to make it all nice and shiny and make it look all new. I wanted to kind of make it look like it's been around a long time. It's a well used machine, I guess you could say. And my wife got me an airbrush kit for Christmas, so I could start doing a little bit more fine details on my prop. I figured this would be a great one to start with. So this is my first attempt ever using an airbrush kit. And overall, I gotta say, I'm really happy with how it came out. It definitely, when you look at it, definitely represents what it's supposed to look like, an old rusty tractor that's all, pitted and whatever the case may be. So I'm pretty happy with how that came out. The body panels, I went with a plastic, so they're nice and solid. I don't have to worry about dents or anything like that. I did metal in the center. That's the section where that one bearing in the gear was for the steering. I did that one out of metal, so this way if I have to stand on or step on or anything like that, I don't have to worry about it bending or anything of that nature. For the battery boxes, what I did here is I made these little battery covers. Now to access the batteries, you see I got this hinge down here, and I got these little wing nuts. Once you undo the wing nuts, this whole thing will literally just flip completely down right out of the way, completely exposing the battery. But to be honest with you, the only time I should ever have to open those is if I'm actually changing the battery, because for a little bit of a convenience, I went ahead and picked up a couple of these. These are just essentially battery terminals, essentially. So when you pull these off, so say I need to jump start the tractor, or I just need to charge it, I can hook right to these right here. That'll go right to the batteries, charge the batteries for me, and that'll keep me from not having to constantly open up the the battery boxes all the time. So I just did that as more or less a convenience thing, I guess you can say. And since this already had a light switch for the headlights that were on the Ride-A-More, I went ahead and put a light up on the top of the boom. So if I happen to be doing something in the dark, I actually have some light so I can light up my workspace as I'm carrying something. So I went ahead and put that on there since, the wiring was already there, so why not? Overall, I'm really happy with the way this came out. There was a few points where I was really questioning if I was going to be able to do this and make it work, or at least, if anything, somewhat make it look decent, I guess you can say. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's kind of something I thought about for a long time, just never really pulled the trigger. I finally decided to pull the trigger on it to see if I can do it. And overall, I think it was a success. It definitely performs and does what it's supposed to do for a forklift. Outside, I'm not going to lift a car up with it anytime soon, but before what I'm going to use it for, it's going to be perfect. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope this video was very entertaining to watch this thing go from a simple little Ride-A-Mower to essentially what you see right now. So if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button for me. And as always, thanks for watching.